I'm Greg Selinger from Manitoba, and I'm pleased to be here with my colleagues on the panel. And I'd once again like to add my thanks to the Climate Registry and Diane and the Georgetown Climate Center and Vicki for hosting this event. The one thing about climate change is I think it's given us a common perspective on how we can develop our economies and our communities, and it's erased borders, the borders between the states and Canada and the borders between the provinces in some cases, and it allows us to work together on a common vision of how we want to proceed. And that becomes concrete as we enter mechanisms like the Western Climate Initiative or the Midwest Greenhouse Gas Reduction Accord, because then we have to get down to work and figure out the practical mechanisms that we're going to implement these cooperative measures together with. And I think that kind of modeling is now going to be the groundwork for what the national governments do later on. They will be learning from the experiences that we've forged how to do whatever kind of emission trading scheme they put in place. So I think subnational governments, to use the term we're using today, have been pioneers in that sense of finding practical ways to do things together that use the market mechanism, that use innovation to make a difference on climate change. In Manitoba, we are 1.2 million people. We have 20% of the water supply flowing through our province, 5 different watersheds, and this has given us a natural ability to have our hydroelectricity to be 98% of all the electricity we provide in the province. So we start in a very good place, and having this natural resource, which we have harnessed and used HVDC, high voltage direct current technology, to bring from the north to the south and allow us to export into our neighboring regions, Minnesota and Wisconsin, up to 40% of all the hydroelectricity we use, which has displaced over 200 million tons of greenhouse gases in the region that we trade in. So we're very fortunate to have that asset, and we've tried to develop it in a responsible, environmentally responsible way. We've also put in place legislation, which was part of the introduction, that requires us to reach Kyoto 1990 base level -6% reduction in the next 3 years, which is going to be an ambitious target. So we have a near-term goal there that pushes us to be innovative and to keep working on this. And some of the ways we're doing that is, as we develop our hydroelectricity, we've completely changed the way we do business now in the north of Manitoba. We don't build the dam first and compensate the people that are affected later. We do all of our relationship building with First Nations first. They are equity stakeholders in our dams. Any potential adverse effects have to be identified, worked out, and compensated for or dealt with and mitigated before we start the project. All the environmental reviews have to be done. And this has reduced the footprint of all of these projects. They're now all low-head dams with the employment opportunities, the training, and the long-term revenues being shared with the peoples in the traditional territories where we're doing those projects. So it's a much better model. It takes more patience and more planning, but we think it gives a better outcome, both on the environmental side, but also the economic development side, and the First Nations economic development side in particular. Energy efficiency is still the best way to save money and reduce carbon emissions, and we have moved into first place from 9th on energy efficiency in our country, tied with British Columbia, as I believe, and on the energy efficiency programs that we do. And that's been the equivalent of about 500 megawatts, a small or medium-sized dam, and far less costly than building the dam, and has allowed us to be innovative with low-income programming. We have a number of employment projects that engage inner-city residents to be trainees to do energy-efficient retrofits on housing in the neighborhoods. So we get a social justice benefit as well as a energy benefit and savings to the homeowners that have these projects in the neighborhoods where they're operating. We're operating them in several different neighborhoods in Manitoba, and the utility is paying for the cost of doing that along with the government in terms of the training. But the utility finances these projects, and I think they've made a big difference, and I know them intimately, working with them to help get these projects off the ground. We have, for example, a furnace purchase program that costs the resident or the homeowner $19 a month for 5 years, and in the first month they save more money on their energy cost than the cost of financing the new furnace, the high-efficiency furnace. So there's an immediate win for the low-income resident and an immediate win for the environment, and it's the utility that has to put the program in place and eat the $1,200 or $1,300 difference between the cost to the resident and the cost to the utility, but they get it back on the energy savings, which are then a resource that they can export. We've moved on wind. We started with a 100 megawatt project. It's got good community economic development benefits because it puts a land rent into the farmer's hands and a tax into the municipality's hands. I actually learned about the wind opportunity from Matin in 2001 when I visited your area of the province, and I saw how it worked, Jean, and took the idea back to Manitoba, and we started next to do that. We will have another major project. As you know, financing for wind has become an issue in the last year, so we're looking at some innovative methods of financing which involve the utility itself being potentially a finance partner. We've got the first biodiesel mandate in Canada, which I mentioned earlier today, a 2% mix. We have a cold climate, so we're starting with something that's doable, but that, again, provides economic development opportunities in the province for non-food inputs. It's a 20 million litre mandate. It's not restricted to having to purchase it in Manitoba, but we gave the mandate with a subsidy that phases out after 5 years once the mandate takes hold. And the biodiesel can come in or out of the province, but we put our producers on a level playing field so we could have those jobs and opportunity in the province. And that builds on an ethanol mandate that we put in place several years before that using the same methodology. We have a coal reduction strategy. We only had 2 real major coal installations in the province, one in the Interlake. We eliminated that about 8 years ago and substituted natural gas after several complaints about the impact on the environment that we took seriously, and we have put the remaining coal plant on standby only for emergency use and completely taken it out of service in the western part of the province. And we have a coal tax that comes into play in 2011, which will be an incentive for other small users of coal, particularly farmers, to shift away from that.
So, landfill operations, methane is another area where we're taking an initiative, and we're using methane reduction targets. We're financing that up front for the landfill operators, which are, in our case, municipalities. And we've got one going in one of our second largest city, and then, of course, Winnipeg. And we're finding customers for the methane as we find a way to take it out of the landfills. And a green buildings policy. All of the buildings we build in Manitoba now have to be meet the LEED Silver standard at least, and that reduces operating costs. There's a practical outcome for that, but it's the life cycle thinking and how you do green buildings. And our hydro building, our major energy provider, which is owned by the government, we call it a Crown Corporation in Canada, has the greenest head office building in North America. It just won the Tall Building Award for North America. It's reduced its energy consumption by 60% with passive solar, LED lighting, geothermal, any new technology you can think of. They've packed it into the building and put it right downtown, which has moved 2,000 employees back to the inner city, back to the downtown, instead of being out in the suburbs. So that was one of the bigger payoffs. Manufacturing, we're the bus manufacturing capital of North America and have some of the most advanced technology for bus manufacturing with hybrid technology. So that's a good story for us. And we continue to support that industry in Manitoba. And then protected areas. We've, in the last month, we've protected another 400,000 hectares of boreal, which is also territory for the polar bear. That adds to the 800,000 we've already done for a total of 1.2 million. And boreal forest is a big theme for us. Particularly, we're looking at a UNESCO World Heritage Site on the border of Manitoba and Ontario, which also has Aboriginal communities that live in that territory. So we have a double potential win on that with the unique cultures of the Aboriginal peoples being there, who are 93% of the population in that area, and the intact boreal forest. We believe that by getting that designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, that we can then see ecotourism as the future way of people in that area making a living. So we'll protect the environment and provide a stronger economy. So that's a big one for us. There's lots of political controversy about that because all of our hydro transmission line is no longer allowed to go through that territory. So we've had to lengthen the lines to provide our customers with power. But we think it's a good fight, and we ultimately think we'll prevail politically on that. And then last but not least, I should talk a little bit about polar bears. It's a little known fact that polar bears have the vote in Manitoba. And as a result of giving them the vote, we've made them a protected species. And I'm pulling your leg right now, actually, on that last point about the vote. But we've decided that that's a theme we want to pursue because we now have the headquarters of Polar Bears International in Manitoba. So protecting the polar bear and putting an exhibit in our major centers, and then having it as a source of tourism with protected areas around it is a way that we can not only protect the environment, but allow the economy to develop in our northern regions. So those are some of the initiatives we've taken, and a climate change perspective gives you a way of moving forward on the economy in a sustainable way and providing new kinds of jobs for the future. So that's how we see it, and we're pleased to do that with our partners at the table here. And we think we can give a lot of ideas to our national governments on how they can move along with us on this journey towards a low-carbon future. Thank you very much.